Good morning and welcome back to another edition of the Lynn Lowdown. I'm Dani Vittori, and today we have on two guests from the Lynn Cultural Council. Could you introduce yourselves real quick?
Yep, so my name is Cristian Recinos, and I am the current chair of the Lynn Cultural Council.
My name is Sunil Gulab, and I'm the current admin at the Lynn Cultural Council.
Great. I want to say thanks for coming on the show, first and foremost. And I'll ask, sort of broadly, like, what's the goal of the Cultural Council? What do you focus on?
Yeah, so the chief purpose of the Lynn Cultural Council is a grant-making entity, or rather not a grant-making, but a grant-awarding entity. The Lynn Cultural Council is part of Massachusetts Cultural Council's local cultural council program. So that just means, there's the Lynn Cultural Council, but every municipality across the state has one. So there's the Swampscott Cultural Council, Beverly Cultural Council, Boston Cultural Council, etc.
And when I look at, you said you're a smaller piece of a larger entity, and you talk about how the local decision-making is a huge piece of the system. So like what you choose to do here could be vastly different than like what the Swampscott one chooses to do, or the Marblehead one or something.
That's very true. So the good thing is the Mass Cultural Council gives us the authority to decide what's important to us. And Lynn is very different, even though we're neighbors with Swampscott and Marblehead. We're so different. We have different goals, different peoples. So that gives us the authority to decide what's important for Lynn. And we could pick, for example, a particular subject. If dance is more important, we could focus on dance for a year. And if, let's say, art or installations is more important the next year, we can change, as long as it's consensus amongst the council. And for that reason, we want a diverse council so that it represents everyone in Lynn when we make those decisions.
Definitely. And when you talk about kind of the process, your fiscal year, does it follow the calendar year, or is it like not exactly? Like when is the start, when is the end?
I'm not 100% about that detail. I want to say the fiscal year ends when we get the award, which is typically February, historically in March, but I don't think it's traditional as in it starts in January, ends in December. Mm-hmm. But for us, the actual grant cycle, that tends to start in September when the applications open up in an online portal that people can begin applying for. And then us deliberating over them starts as soon as the cycle ends, but usually, typically by mid-October. And then we're typically meeting much more frequently, discussing them, evaluating them, up until like January.
And typically when a grant's awarded to someone, they have a year to use the funding to put on their event. So this year, it went out, I want to say it was January 22nd, was it February 22nd?
Yeah, approximately.
So let's say it was February 22nd of 2022. The awardee has until February 22nd, 2023 to show that the event has happened.
That makes sense. And in terms of money, I know it's distributed differently depending on what people are applying for, but how much money actually is available typically for you in a grant cycle?
So the Mass Cultural Council is the one that gives us our funds to award. So it's all state money, and it's increased incrementally each year. So this year, we had $99,800 to award, but actually that number's a little bit larger because we also have to add into that annual allotment any funds that didn't get utilized in the previous year. So this year, what we had to, combining the state allotment as well as those funds that didn't get claimed in the previous year, was a little over 100,000. 2022, the state allotment was like 80,000 something, and then in 2021 it was 79 something. So incrementally it's increased each year. The average award that we'll typically give people is around 5,000, but not to discourage anybody who might want to apply for more funds. Last year, I think our largest grant that we awarded was about 10,000 to Michelle La Poetica's density events. But yeah, so there's variety and there are options there. And also, speaking to how much we get from the state each year.
Mm-hmm. And if someone, an organization, whoever wants to apply for a grant, how would they go about doing so? Like, what's the process?
Yeah, so when the grant portal opens in September, it's an online questionnaire. Unfortunately, I think historically, previously, did they? Sunil's been on the board longer than me. So
Like 2 years.
historically, did they ever take paper grants? Because as far as I know, currently, it's all online.
During my time as well, it was all online. They
okay.
could have been prior.
All right.
I
So
only know of online.
as far as our tenure, it's all an online application. And folks just need to, it's fairly A to Z, general, demographic questions, name, organization, contact info. And then obviously we need a description of whatever the project might be. We need a budget. We do try to do, another part of the Cultural Council is that we do community outreach. So, via social media posts. We also try to get some workshops together for people who might be questioning, like, how do I apply? And that's an opportunity for people to see somebody in person to kind of walk them through it a little bit.
And also I handhold, if anyone needs and they send out an email to lynnculturalcouncil@gmail.com, I will assist them getting an application done.
But the online application, I think it's fairly,
Self-explanatory.
Yeah. Something I do note to people, though, is that sometimes folks aren't the strongest writers in describing their things. There's also the opportunity to add an attachment to your application. So sometimes if people want to do a video, like, verbally explaining the process, or if they want to attach any other media that, might better evidence their project to us. I think recently you guys just covered the North Shore Media Expo. They didn't receive funding from us this year, but they did receive it last year. And something that Newbie had done is that he attached a lot of videos and images of like what the project was, which made it easier for the council to, know what it is.
The visual can really help sometimes. You can
Yes.
see the event, you can see the impact of it, in addition to, as you said, the written description. And I know we have a few images up there. Are those from previous meetings or events, or looks like?
Yes, they are. So the bottom left is our meeting at Gala. This was during COVID, so we all had our masks on. I think this was the onboarding of the new Cultural Council members, which we have a very young, vibrant, new group of people who are much more active than I remember from previous groups. Not that the previous groups were bad, but there's this invigorating sense of passion for the arts, which is always great to see. And Cristian, our chair, has been great, learning the ropes from people like me who were actually new into the Cultural Council. So in a lot of ways, we've been creating our, goals and direction. Oh, other pictures are gone. But
Yeah.
there was one from High Rock Park. That was, I think, part of Michelle La Poetica's. That was like an open mic. And the one on the bottom right is Anna from Anna Did a Thing, and she helped with painting jersey barriers in Lynn for restaurants during COVID.
Yes, I remember that. They all got painted. That was really cool looking.
Yeah.
And I'll ask you, one thing is, why do you think it is so important to have a cultural council that awards grants and has that representation in Lynn?
I think it's a good avenue for artists and creatives to bring color to Lynn. As an artist myself, people typically look at the dollar sign. Can I afford to do something? And artists in general are always looking for funds. We're always, it's the person who has to, moonlight doing some job to be able to paint or draw during the day, that kind of thing. And this is the best opportunity or an easy opportunity to bring a thought, an idea that you have in your mind, bring it to life with public funding. And the application process is not very difficult. And I think, the reward for that is quite great because not only do you get to, put your mark on your city, but it is possible through public funding. And opportunities like this are very precious to the few who don't have very many avenues to go to for that funding.
Yeah, and I think I would just echo a lot of the things Sunil just mentioned. It's great for the local vitality of the arts and culture scene. And I think we discussed a little bit before cameras were rolling that, it's very accessible. There aren't restrictions that you need to be a 501c3 nonprofit. You can apply as an individual, as an informal group. And, we also supplement, I think, some funds that, should really come from the municipality. Again, these are all state funds for this program. But a lot of local cultural council funds, at least in the case of Lynn, will go to the public library's summer arts events. It'll go towards some field trips for students at the local public schools. Yeah, so it also supplements some of the things that municipal funds aren't going to at the moment. Yeah.
And municipal funds may be used for like larger projects, larger groups. The cultural council funds are perfect for smaller, as well as larger, but also smaller.
Yeah, it's perfect for both.
Yeah.
You said people who have, I don't want to say like smaller days, but it's just smaller groups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Different events.
Yeah, definitely different events that require different levels of funding.
Right. Right.
And I probably should have asked this before, but how long have you both been involved with the Cultural Council?
I'm going on for, I think it's 5 years now, 4 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sunil currently serves as their admin, but previously he was a voting member of the body. This will be year 2, I think. A lot of our members on the Cultural Council coming out of the pandemic are newly appointed. So a majority of our council, I think, are, newer to the body. So only a few years so far for me.
That's great, though. You said new voices.
Yes.
Opinions, those are always good. And is there anything else that you wanted to mention about the council that I maybe missed or didn't talk about?
I don't think I said it, but I also want to make sure that folks know that even though the title is the Cultural Council, I think people immediately see the title and think oh, okay, this is explicitly for the arts, painting, dancing, traditional forms of art that people would think of. But the state gives us the guidelines that culture is defined not just as the arts, but also the sciences, also the humanities. So if there are projects out there that people are looking to get funding for, such as, I'm not quite sure what to think of scientifically, but astronomy or, biology, something like that, they can also seek funding for that. If a public high school teacher wants to take kids to the science museum or something, they could apply for that. I know that some of the local high schools will do really fun stuff like create hovercrafts or things like that. If they want money for materials for something like that, they could do that. And in humanities also, if there's something that, doesn't explicitly fall within the arts, but it is something maybe more in the DEIA field, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, that's also an avenue that, we can take a look at it, evaluate it, and see if we could potentially also give funding to those types of projects.
Definitely.
And also we give preference to first-time appliers. So if you think you have a project and you're a little afraid of applying, please reach out because we will give you an advantage. We do want those who otherwise are not represented in Lynn to show up and have their projects funded.
It sounds like a really impressive, inclusive organization, and I want to thank you for coming on to talk about it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. And once again, this has been the Lynn Lowdown. I'm Dani Vittori, and we'll see you next week with more guests.